What if I told you the internet you use every day is only a tiny part of the whole thing? We scroll, search and stream like we've seen it all, but that's just the surface. Beneath it are hidden layers most people never touch. In the next 10 minutes, I'll walk you through each one, from the familiar web to the parts that are widely misunderstood. And to understand why so much of the internet feels hidden, you have to start with the only part most of us ever see. If the internet feels infinite, why do we keep seeing the same kinds of websites over and over? The surface web is part of the internet that search engines can see. Any page that is public, reachable without logging in, and technically accessible to crawlers can be indexed and shown in the search results. This includes news websites, blogs, social media profiles, online stores, forums, and public informational pages. When you type something into Google, the results you see come almost entirely from this layer. Search engines use automated programs, often called crawlers or spiders, to scan pages, follow links, read metadata, and build massive indexes of what is publicly available. Ranking algorithms then decide which pages appear first based on relevance, authority, and many other signals. This layer feels enormous because it is constantly updating. New posts, new pages, new content appears every second, but size and visibility are not the same thing. Now here's the twist. Even though the surface web feels like the internet, most estimates suggest it represents a small fraction of all online data. The reason it dominates our perception is simple. It is designed to be found. So if the surface web is what search engines can see, where does everything else go? Everything that search engines cannot index falls into what is called the deep web. This does not mean hidden or illegal, it simply means private or restricted. Any page that requires a login is part of the deep web. Your email inbox, online banking portal, medical records, cloud storage, academic databases, internal work dashboards, subscription services, and private social media feeds all live here. If a page is generated dynamically after you log in or submit a form, search engines cannot crawl it in a meaningful way. When you check your bank balance or open a student portal, you're not going deeper in a dramatic sense. You're just accessing content that's intentionally protected. Most people actually spend more time on the deep web and the surface web, but it never feels mysterious because privacy feels invisible when it works properly. Now why can't search engines just log in and index everything anyway? Because much of the deep web is not made of static pages at all. It's built on databases that generate content on demand. When you search your email, filter transactions, or load personalized content, the page you see is created specifically for you at that moment. Search engines cannot meaningfully index pages that change based on user input, permissions, or context. Doing so would break privacy and overwhelm systems with useless data. This layer is where the internet stopped being a library and became a memory system. Okay, now think about this. If the deep web is private but still online, what about systems that are never meant for the public at all? Intranets are private networks used inside organizations. They often look like normal websites, but they are only accessible to employees or members within a closed environment. Companies, universities, hospitals, and governments use intranets to run internal tools, documentation, communication platforms, and operational systems. Some intranets are technically connected to the public network, but locked behind authentication. Others are reachable only from inside specific networks. To the outside world, these systems effectively do not exist, even though they may contain information far more important than anything publicly searchable. Well, now that we heard about intranets, do you not wonder what happens when organizations need to share private systems with outsiders? That is where extranets come in. An extranet is a controlled extension of an intranet that allows limited access to trusted external parties, such as suppliers, partners, or clients. These systems are carefully permissioned because they sit between private and public space. This layer exists because modern systems cannot function in isolation. Collaboration requires exposure, and exposure requires control. Many real-world data breaches happen here, not because systems are exotic, but because trust boundaries are complex. And once you realize how much of the internet isn't built for people at all, the next question almost asks itself. So let me show you what's actually talking behind the scenes. The websites are what humans see. What do apps actually talk to? Most modern apps do not load traditional web pages. They communicate through APIs, which are structured interfaces designed for software to talk to other software. When you scroll a feed, check a delivery status, or load personalized content, your device is making API calls behind the scenes. APIs power social media, cloud services, financial platforms, and most of what feels instant online. This layer is massive, mostly invisible, and not designed for humans at all. In many ways, the machine web is now larger and more active than the human-facing web. So after talking about all these different layers, where does the dark web actually fit into the picture? The dark web is a small portion of the internet that requires special software to access, most commonly the Tor browser. It operates on an overlay network that routes traffic through multiple encrypted nodes, making it extremely difficult to trace who is connecting to whom. Dark websites use special addresses, often ending in .onion, and are not indexed by normal search engines. The dark web was not created for crime, it was created to enable anonymity. Journalists, whistleblowers, activists, and people living under surveillance use it to communicate safely. Crime exists there, but it is not the reason the network exists. So is the dark web dangerous or just misunderstood? It's uncontrolled. Illegal marketplaces, scams, and stolen data do exist there. So do discussion forums, publishing platforms, encrypted messaging services, and whistleblowing tools designed to protect sources. The dark web is not good or evil. It reflects intent. Anonymity removes fear, but it also removes accountability, and that tension defines this layer. Well, is the dark web the deepest layer that actually exists? No. Beneath everything we have talked about are systems you will never browse at all. The internet relies on massive physical and logical infrastructure. Data centers, fiber backbones, routing hubs, satellite links, and control systems that move traffic across the planet. Power grids, logistics networks, financial clearing systems, and communication backbones operate continuously without public interfaces. They are part of the internet ecosystem, but not part of the web. If these systems fail, the visible internet becomes irrelevant almost instantly. Now let's think about systems that are not connected to the internet at all. What about those? Some critical systems are deliberately isolated: nuclear facilities, military command systems, industrial control networks, and certain aviation systems operate on air-gapped or tightly controlled networks where separation is a security feature. These networks exist alongside the internet, but their safety depends on not being reachable. At this layer, being hidden isn't about convenience, it's about staying alive. So what about things like the Mariana's web, or secret final layers? Concepts like the Mariana's web, media layers, virus loops, or AI-controlled systems do not exist as real documented layers of the internet. They come from internet folklore, iceberg charts, and speculative storytelling. There is no technical evidence of a hidden, quantum-encrypted superlayer beneath the dark web. But the reason people believe these ideas matter. When systems become too complex to visualize, imagination fills the gaps. So far, we've only scratched the surface, but in reality, how much of the internet do we really understand? Probably just enough to live inside of it, not enough to see its full shape. The surface web feels like the internet because it is designed for comfort. Everything beneath it exists for privacy, coordination, resilience, or control. If most of the internet was never meant to be seen, how much of the digital world shaping your life operates completely outside your awareness? Tell us what surprised you most in the comments, and if you enjoy explainers that slow things down and make invisible systems understandable, watch the next video on your screen and subscribe. Because the internet isn't just something you use, it's something you live inside.